All right, guys. So AOC, I guess this was on TikTok. I don't know. I'm a boomer. I don't know all the different social media outlets and which one is which. I don't know if it's TikTok. Insta is probably TikTok. TikTok is more video. Insta is more pictures. Anyway, so she had some thoughts for us on the term Latinx. I got two separate short videos here. Let's go through them, and I'll respond.
Also, in the spirit of pride, I wanted to have a note on gender inclusivity in Spanish language. People sometimes like to make a lot of drama over the term Latinx. But even before Latinx, people were trying to do this, like, use an at to have the A and the O together. Gender is fluid, language is fluid, and I think people right now are using the E term as gender neutral in order to be as inclusive as possible. Don't have to make drama.
I think that was supposed to say, don't have to make drama over it. All right, let's see what else she says. We got one more here.
I also have a mini rant about this because there are some politicians, including Democratic politicians, that rail against the term Latinx. And they're like, this is so bad. This is so bad for the party, like blah, blah, blah. And like, it's almost as though it has not struck some of these folks that another person's identity is not about your reelection prospects. Like, this is not about you. Second of all, if putting a little X on your campaign literature is what you think is the difference between winning or losing an election, you need to talk about healthcare more. You need to raise people's wages. You need to talk about more issues that also matter to people.
Well, that part is true. Talk more about healthcare, talk more about minimum wage, talk more about the substantive material economic issues. I'll bite my tongue until she's done talking here, and then I'll respond, but maybe, AOC, you should take your own advice as you're doing a smug rant here about the necessity of using the term Latinx. Maybe you should take your own advice. Hey, why don't we focus on the things that matter to all Americans, that are the bread and butter issues that would win us elections? This little TikTok you did here is not really about that now, is it?
That being said, why are people opting for trying to use Latine over Latinx? Well,
are they? Are they? Or are you in your insular little bubble subculture of academia and elites and activists? Is this really a hot conversation that's happening all around the country? I'm going to bite my tongue. Sorry, I keep trying to interject, but I'll show you in a second.
Latinx can be convenient in written form because you just put down an X and people can kind of mentally put in whatever.
Yeah, very convenient. All this is very convenient. It's very convenient every 2.5 years to change all of the terminology.
Vowel they identify with. But it's kind of hard to say. So Latine, you avoid the masculine O.
Are you taking notes, guys?
You avoid the feminine A. Latine, E, is a little more neutral, so it can be more inclusive to people. For example, saying nosotres. That being said, if you don't want to use it, no one's forcing you to.
Really? And why are you doing this whole thing imploring people to use it? You should really, really use this. But, hey, I'm not forcing you to or anything.
But for people who enjoy trying to figure out language and have it meet the modern age, that's kind of where it's at.
Okay, great. What do we have here? Oh, look at this, from 2020. About 1 in 4 U.S. Hispanics have heard of Latinx, but just 3% use it. 3% use it. 97% don't use it. The majority haven't even heard of it. So, let me explain something. If somebody tells me, hey, I want you to refer to me as this, I'm always going to refer to them as that. Because I'm not a dick. And, I'm not trying to create problems out of nothing. I'm not trying to create a mountain out of a molehill. So if somebody says to me, use this for me, sure, no problem at all. But the idea that this is going to become commonplace vernacular and the default when talking about Hispanics is preposterous. 97% of Hispanics don't do it. So what are we talking about here What are we talking about here? Now, look, I'm very critical. Whenever the right brings up wokeness, I'm very critical because they use that as a wet blanket to throw over everything. I mean, you could literally be talking about universal health care, and they're like, look at this woke nonsense. So they're ridiculous. The way they use it is dumb. Cancel culture too, talking about that and bringing it up in every single context when it doesn't apply, that annoys the shit out of me. But when people, in honest criticism of quote unquote wokeness is this. I think Michael made a good point about this. Look at this. This is an example of why AOC will never be a viable presidential candidate in a general election. She's out of touch with the vast majority of working class Latino voters. It's the truth. Look, all of the language policing and stuff like that, this is popular in liberal academia. It's popular with a very tiny sliver, a subculture on the left and of liberals. This is not speaking the language of the working class. Again, if you want me to refer to you as something, I'm always going to refer to you as it. But yeah, you'd have to say, refer to me as X, Y, or Z. And then, okay, cool, no problem. But the idea that, like, what, people should be saying Latinx totally unprompted? That this should be like, you know, a pivot and a transition in language that everybody should adopt? Look, I'll bring it up again. And let's be kind. This was from 2020. Only 3% of Hispanics use it. Let's say it doubled since 2020. 6% of Hispanics use it. Okay, so I side with 94% of Hispanics. She sides with 6% of Hispanics. But guess who would be accused of being anti-Hispanic because of the terminology they use? That's the thing that drives me crazy, is like, and you know there are people out there who would say it's like bigoted for me not to concede completely to her argument, and I'm like, I'm old and I'm out of touch and, you know, I'm not up with the times. No, quite literally, the numbers show she's not in touch with the times. So, and understand something, guys, this isn't a blanket generalization, because it's true, language does evolve over time. But some of the ways in which people try to change language don't land, and they're not gonna land. And it's like trying to force a square peg into a round hole, and it's really insular, and it turns people the fuck off. You know? Like, I get it. Back in the day, the terminology used to be illegal alien. Everybody said that. And then after a while, it became illegal immigrant. And it's like, okay, that's better. Alien, it like literally is trying to make somebody who's a fellow human being sound like foreign and scary, right? And so different. So I understand how that was clearly like a propaganda term that was sort of nefarious, right? But then it changed to illegal immigrant. Now that sounded fine to me, right? Like, yeah, they're not an alien, they're a person. They're an immigrant, right? So illegal immigrant. I thought that's a reasonable change. But then it changed to undocumented immigrant. And it was like, well, hold on. And the argument was, well, no human being can be illegal. So therefore we have to change illegal immigrant to undocumented immigrant. And it's like, okay, I'll go along with you, but I know that the word is going to be changed in 3.5 minutes again, and then you're going to change it again after that, and then you're going to change it again after that, and at the end of the day, it's like, why are we doing all this? Why are we doing all this? You want to make reasonable changes? Sure, but you, like, just changes for change's sake, because somebody made up a dumb argument that they insist everybody should believe, and then we all have to change after that? It's like, we're wasting our fucking time here, guys. We're wasting our time here, and that, like, liberal oversensitivity and ability to get offended at fucking anything is something that turns off working class voters. There is no doubt about it. If you've ever been to a fucking union hall, you know that. So it's time to wake up. It's time to wake up. If somebody wants me to refer to them as that, I'll do it in a heartbeat, because I'm not an asshole. I'm not trying to make a big issue out of absolutely nothing. It wouldn't be a big deal to me if somebody said, I'm Latinx, so call me Latinx. Fine, no problem. But is that going to be my default shit when talking about Hispanic people? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I'm with 97% of Hispanics. And so I would argue that makes me more in touch than out of touch. And she's the one who's out of touch. Again, I'll read Michael's tweet one more time here. It's just a waste of... Why are we talking about this? It's such a fucking waste of time. This is an example of why AOC will never be a viable presidential candidate in a general election. Look, that makes me... I'm not happy to say that. She's better on the economic policies than, 96% of elected Democrats. So I wish she would. I wish she would be a viable presidential candidate, but she's shooting herself in the foot with stuff like this. Because this is out of touch with the vast majority of working class Latino voters and all working class voters. This elite academia subset that just gets obsessed with language and language policing. It's not a concern for everyday working people of all backgrounds, all ethnicities, all religious beliefs or non-religious beliefs. Like she said in the video, I would tell her to take her own advice. Take your own advice. Talk about healthcare. Talk about higher wages. Talk about corruption and how we end it. Talk about stopping the outsourcing of jobs. Talk about unions. Talk about ending war. Because this stuff is just a mindless virtue signal. It didn't catch on. It's not gonna catch on. And I think people are living in a fantasy land when they pretend like it is gonna catch on, number one, or number two, that it's a super duper important issue. The only thing that I would say is, yes, if somebody wants you to refer to them as X, Y, or Z, do it. Because that's what a decent person would do, of course. But do you have to make it your default language? And is there something wrong with you if you're not, leading the charge on the Latinx name change? Fuck no. Fuck no. Gotta get out of that insular subculture bubble. You really do. Because this ain't it. Hey y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.